Your next word is prior.
May I have...
Your next word is Shaheen.
May I have a definition, please?
This is the least productive Congress in American history.
Ken Lay, Dennis Kozlowski, criminals, gluttons of greed.
Oxford led a committee that took millions from Nevada's college savings plan to...
Now that billionaire is spending big bucks to help Peter's campaign.
We can definitely trace the money that's given directly to the candidates and directly to the parties. The tricky piece is tracing the money that's going into all these other organizations.
It isn't that somebody says, oh, I love that candidate. If I'm going to give $1 million to a political action committee, it's not that I just happen to think Barack Obama's wonderful. It's that I am making an investment.
My name is Robert Stocks. I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, producer, a husband. There's something to be said for people who, are inherently rich as opposed to somebody who just, comes from nothing and makes the money themselves. But also, there's something to be said about people who do not connect with your regular person, the regular Joe, the regular middle class. My question is it best, that these people are leading us, people who don't understand the middle class? We can have better laws. We can have, I guess, a better thought process before we start cutting school budgets and education and arts and Social Security, things that middle-class Americans hold dear.
And no American need be left out.
Affordable housing to the American people.
Democrats are standing for the middle-class families.
Middle-class Americans.
Despite all the talk about economic hard times from lawmakers, the Center for Responsive Politics has found the median net worth for a Congress member is now at $1,008,767. Meaning for the first time, just over 50% are millionaires.
Every campaign has a limited amount of money to spend. And the goal of a campaign is to get at least one more vote than the other candidate. The goal of a campaign is not to win all of the votes or convert everybody. It's simply to try and get more votes than the other person. You can do that by getting people excited about your campaign. You can also do that by suppressing the votes that your opposition might get. Right? It doesn't matter whether votes are showing up or not showing up. It's that you get at least one more vote than the opponent.
In our last election cycle, there were $4 billion that was spent on advertising.
So the goal is to get a specific number that most of the candidates are going to have in mind. They know how many votes they have to get to the polling place. And then they do that within a budget constraint. So different kinds of activities in a campaign are going to have a certain influence on how many votes might come in. A commercial that costs $100,000 might bring in, on expectation, 300 new voters. So then you have a cost per vote calculation. But a commercial that costs $100,000 might be so negative that it also decreases the turnout or the votes for the other side by 200. So all of these things get thrown in. How much money are you going to spend door to door? how much are you going to spend on focus groups, with telephone calls, with mailings, actually handling transportation? A large campaign costs a whole lot of money. Now today, most of that money is spent on television.
My name is Rob Simpson. I am the president and CEO of Wave Rider Communications, located in Boston. I sold television advertising for 17 years before launching this company, and have a lot of experience in my career in selling broadcast television of dealing with the political window and political advertising and how that impacts local sales. My experience with political advertising and television is from the perspective of a local account executive at a television station, where you don't actually take the orders in and handle the political commercials themselves, but it's the ramifications of the way that TV advertising is purchased for political campaigns and how the structure works and what the rules are and the different political windows and how all of that comes into play. Now, the way that advertising is spent and how it impacts television is in the following way. 6 minutes of time for commercials, which will equal 12 30-second commercials. Now, these commercials are sold at various rates. Let's say, for an example, the highest rate is $1,500 for the most expensive commercial that we'll run in this program. Let's say the least expensive was $1,000. Tradition or normal practice in the television business is that if this program is sold out, all of these commercials are sold, and someone would like to get into the program, they pay what is called a preemption rate. And the preemption rate is traditionally double what the lowest unit rate is that's in the program. So if I came in and I owned a business and I absolutely had to advertise and I needed to be in this program and it was very important, I would pay $2,000, doubling this rate, and this commercial here would then be preempted, and you're paying a premium because the station is being inconvenienced, and also the client that's being removed from the broadcast is being inconvenienced. So now this becomes $2,000, and that goes up to the top. When it comes to political campaigns, because politicians in Washington write the laws and determine what the rules are for political advertising, when it comes into a political window, every politician who wants to advertise on television, by law, is entitled to the lowest unit rate within whatever program they happen to be buying. So under this scenario, if we have, again, a $1,000 commercial, any politician can come in and say, I want that commercial, I want to pay $1,000 for it, and you have to bump out the regular advertiser who has supported you all throughout the year because my commercial has to run there. The result of this, in this political window that I had described, television stations all over the country raise their rates. It's called the political rate card.
An enormous proportion, I forget the exact percentage, but an enormous proportion of the money raised by candidates goes for television. You know, there are other expenses, you know, they have to have airplanes, they fly around, they do all that, but the television advertising, which also means, in terms of some things about the media in the United States and what they like, local television stations and the television networks make a fortune of these elections. They really like this kind of system. That's a big source of revenue for them.
Now, maybe instead of $1,000 being the lowest that they would sell this particular commercial for, they now raise this rate to $1,500, $1,750, maybe even $2,000. And they do that because they know when the politicians come in to buy the political advertising, by law, they have to get the lowest rate. So instead of having to play around with this, they jack up the rates, and that is one of the reasons why it ends up costing $4 billion to have a midterm election cycle.
They spent over $4 billion on campaign ads alone. Campaign ads. So I'm like, you know, $4 billion, I need to look closer or something, you know what I'm saying? See what $4 billion look like in commercials. Let me see what this look like.
Every year, candidates are assessing what's the return to my investment in the following ways, right? If I do robocalls, is it buying me enough access? And these things change over time. Television commercials no longer work very well to mobilize voters. Television commercials work remarkably well to demobilize the opposition. It's, you throw enough garbage at each other that everyone starts to stink, and then you don't have to try and get everybody to the polls because you know that your committed voters are going to get to the polls.
Truth is, Republicans used to care about solving problems. So where did it all go wrong? Some say you can trace it back to the first debt ceiling crisis.
And you certainly don't do all this to please some guy that looks and fights like a turtle. I'm a Texan. We Texans don't need a beltway turtle telling us how to fight.
I'll make sure President Obama gets the message.
So $4 billion is a lot of money. What I want to do is find out, is there a better way to influence Americans to vote for you? Some of these congressmen, more than half of them, are already millionaires, while only about 2% of Americans are millionaires as well. So let's do better. Let's try to get people to vote for you maybe in a different way. Let's take that money and maybe raise some teacher salaries.
Last year in Philly, I remembered reading about at least 24 schools that closed due to the lack of funding, and also a bunch of employees also got laid off. Teachers, school nurses, they lost, I think, over 100 school nurses, assistant principals. They don't even have school counselors in any of the Philly public schools anymore. It's crazy, especially for me being as a student teacher and trying to get into the field. It's just kind of hard to sit there and try to think about that. They're already closing all of these schools. We're already losing a bunch of opportunity to get employment. So. Foreign aid is important. Like, don't get me wrong, foreign aid is really important. Budgeting, finding enough budgeting for foreign aid and other types of military support is extremely important. However, I feel as though we can't really try to help and aid someone else if we really need the help and the aid here in the United States first. That's a lot of money that could be funding schools, giving students and teachers the proper resources and materials that they need to provide these young students with a proper and appropriate education.
Investigating Carl Levin. He has dual citizenships. Citizen in Israel and the United States. So I'm just, checking out what that means and how he can have, the American people's best interests at heart if he has dual citizenship.
Now, we all know what a threat Iran would be should they get a nuclear weapon. This is not a partisan issue, folks. there is no difference between the parties when it comes to support for Israel. Both parties support Israel, and it is very important that no party use Israel as a wedge against the other party. That does not do Israel any good, and it doesn't do the United States any good. Both parties are supporters of Israel.
So Carl Levin is a citizen of Israel and a citizen of the United States. We give over $8 million per day to Israel, but we still cut education and all kinds of stuff here in this country. I wonder how important, that is if Carl has a citizenship in Israel and the United States at the same time, and we give him money to Israel, like a blank check, $8 million a day.
Since the end of World War II, we have given away trillions of dollars, both to friend and foe. We've done our best to try to help the world along. Unfortunately, we have not made very many friends. We have seemed to have made a lot of enemies.
I'd concentrate on, I think, disabled veterans and elderly.
We are paying for a brand new high school. We're on the hook for over $33 million, so if I had $3 million, I would definitely put it toward, say, something worthwhile. Or over here, we have a brand new town hall going up. Again, this is the cost of the town taxpayers, $10 million. That, I believe, could put toward here on worthy costs here for locally.
I think I would start with a lot of these schools. I think that I would start by working on legislation that would match politicians' pay to teachers' pay, and then I would work on donating the majority of that money towards educating our children.
So came across a school, just randomly drove past, and we're just gonna randomly pop in and see if we can talk to anybody.
Hey, how you doing? What you need?
In the teaching office. Hey, how you doing? That's Miss Brown? We come to see you. Well, we want to have a conversation with the teacher about lack of funding. The cameras follow me doing a documentary. I'm a father, I'm a musician, I'm a husband, and I want to get some answers and talk to a teacher, somebody who's in it, in the thick of it, and just talk about, the lack of funding. Some family festivals and stuff like that, people who are doing the actual film, there'll probably be family festivals and all kinds of stuff. But this is a documentary. That's all it is. It's not like, I understand. I respect that.
I appreciate what you're doing though, because, I respect that. In terms of funding,
My experience with this school is that people are actually afraid to talk about how they feel about some of these issues. Man, that speaks volumes. It's unfortunate. Wow, that made me feel some kind of way. They scared. Pickens right here with me. He has been in education for quite some time now. I'm excited to meet and talk with him because it's great to have another perspective on some of the questions that I have.
I'm a psychologist by training, and so clinical psychologist by training, and so part of my responsibilities are to be a college professor. Personally, I've been fortunate enough to get a couple of federal grants and be able to really get a lot of great work done through it. But my colleagues in our field as a whole were always scrapping, scraping for funds to make sure that we can get the research done that really informs the practice and the policies that, eventually will make sense for everyday people. So it's something that's really important.
I was looking at our election cycle and looking at the amount of money that they spend on these videos. I was comparing and contrasting a few videos, and man, I think $4 billion is a lot to spend on, just campaigning for elections. I'd like to know how you feel about that, that whole deal, because it's quite confusing to me, and it's kind of entertaining too.
I mean, I think it's tremendously important that we as Americans have a clear perspective of what our leaders think is important, and to do that you do need money. And so I think election spending is something that's important, but it does seem that so much of their energy is focused on the next election cycle that not only does it absorb their funds, but it absorbs their time. I mean, almost as soon as they get in office, they're starting to run another campaign. And so how much of the policy are you actually able to focus on and develop from there? And so I do have a concern about the money, but I think I have even more of a concern about the time, because it impacts the productivity for us to actually get things done. I don't really know much about election campaigning reform, but what I do know is that there's a lot of fed up people with how the money, the taxes, the things, the resources that we have are being used by government. And so I think from that perspective, it is something that is frustrating. And what I'm hoping is that one day we come to a place where we can find more balance, because again, I think it's important, but so that we're not so all consumed by the next campaign.
It's great to hear other people's perspective, and especially an educator, to see and hear their point of view, see things the way they see things. And it's pretty cool. I got a few questions answered, and I just want to dig a little deeper and find out from some more people and catch some other perspectives, see some other perspectives, hear from other people, and keep this thing moving. I'm on a journey, so you can go with me. Let's move.
And just finally, before we let you go, since we have you here, we haven't had a chance to kind of talk about some of the...
I'm not speaking about anything that's off topic. This is only about the president.
Well, what about...
Thank you.
All right, so Congressman Michael Grimm does not want to talk about some of the allegations concerning his campaign finances. We wanted to get him on camera on that, but he, as you saw, refused to talk about that. Back to you.
Let me be clear to you. You have to do that to me again. I'll tell you this. I just wanted to ask you. not the question. You tell me what the heck no, he's not made it. I would not made it. Great like a boy.
It is remarkable in this country that our elections depend so heavily on private money. And yes, it's an expression of people's free speech that they want to support a candidate. But let's not be blind to this.
Super PAC is it's a political committee that spends independently of the candidate. So what does that mean? What that means is, you know, you can give me $10 million, and I will regulate, and I will create what's called a super PAC, and I will use that money to run advertisements. And I'll run advertisements on behalf of a candidate I support. I can even say I support the candidate as long as I'm not coordinating with the candidate, which is a very technical definition, then I can run those advertisements. So the super PACs really matter. And they matter because they're so closely aligned with the candidates that in some ways it's like having a second party to support you, a shadow party to support you. And that makes a big difference on the money front. We can definitely trace the money that's given directly to the candidates and directly to the parties. The tricky piece is tracing the money that's going into all these other organizations. So let me just give you an example. The Chamber of Commerce. So they're called 501c4 and c6 organizations. That just means what kind of organization they are for tax status. So let's say I'm IBM. I could give $10 million to the Chamber of Commerce. And unless I specifically told the Chamber of Commerce this money has to go to advertisements to defeat whatever legislation, I just give the money and the Chamber of Commerce spends on my behalf. It's basically untraceable.
In the United States, we have a fairly clear line between interest groups and political parties. No interest group is ever going to be large enough to become a political party. So people join interest groups to express their preferences, to get things done, maybe to, improve the lot of a certain region or a company and so forth. Interest groups often hire lobbyists, right? And the job of a lobbyist is largely to work on Capitol Hill, but sometimes in the executive branch as well, providing information, saying, here's what we would like you to do. Here's what would happen if you changed the law. One of the scarcest resources for policymakers is not money. It's time and it's information. And so a good lobbyist provides information about how policies will actually work out. But there's a much darker side to all of this as well, because interest groups bring money to the table.
I think it's a mistake to say that there's that they're giving them bags of money. They're giving them campaign money. There's no question. So lobbyists bundle. What does it mean to bundle? Is they invite a congressperson to a cocktail reception in his honor, and they go around and they collect checks from everyone who's there, and then they give them to the congressman, and the congressman knows that all that money came through the lobbyist, that the lobbyist was able to organize it. So that certainly matters. But lobbyists do something that people don't really appreciate, except for the political scientists in the world, which is they provide stuff that representatives really need, which is called information. So just imagine you're a congressman and you're trying to figure out what bill to pass. And you can pass this bill on an issue you care about, but you don't have any idea how to write the bill, what the politics are like, is the bill going to get passed? Or you can work on a different issue where the lobbyist comes in with MIC legislation, right? They've got the bill all written for you, and comes in with a happy meal. It gives you polling results to tell you how popular you'll be with your constituency if you pass it. And it gives you all the political information you need about whether this is worth your time or not. Which one are you going to do? You're going to go for the MIC legislation. That's the way that lobbyists work. So there's a great paper by some political scientists that calls it an information subsidy. It's a legislative subsidy. And so that is also what lobbyists do. And that has nothing to do with money or bribery, but it does have to do with the people who have enough money to get the information to the right people and the people who don't. So who do you think provides the information subsidy? Corporations.
Money is not so important in day-to-day lobbying. It's really, there's not bribery going on here. But money plays a very important role in running our elections. Right? The two presidential candidates will each spend above $1 billion on these campaigns. That money doesn't suddenly appear, right? That money comes from wealthy individuals, people representing corporations, involved in different kinds of political action committees and so forth. And when one makes a contribution to a political candidate, it isn't that somebody says, oh, I love that candidate. If I'm going to give $1 million to a political action committee, it's not that I just happen to think Barack Obama's wonderful. It's that I am making an investment. I'm making an investment in that candidate because if he or she becomes a member of Congress or the governor or the senator, I'm going to have influence with them.
We know lobbyists matter, or at least we know that the people who have a lot of money to spend and are smart about spending it spend more on lobbying than they do on elections. So, for example, 2008, which was the biggest money year ever for presidential elections, record-setting money. No one had ever seen that much money in a presidential election, and still more was spent on lobbyists on the Hill than was spent on the presidential election. So why is that? Because very smart people realize that if you want to get something passed, the easiest way to do it is to hire a lobbyist. It's not to get involved in the controversial election systems or issues. It's just go to Washington, hire a lobbyist, get access, and get your bill through. It's done quietly. People don't notice it. Highly unregulated, and it's the coin of the realm in D.C.
So first, I'm gonna reach out to a few Congress members. First on my list, I'm gonna contact Elizabeth Warren.
Senator Warren's office.
Yeah, we're doing a documentary about money management and politics. Do you mind if we ask Senator Warren a few questions?
I can give you the email address for our press people, and that would be the best person to reach out to and try and see if you can coordinate something.
Okay, I'll take that.
To leave a message for me about current issues or legislation, please press 1. For information regarding our office address and hours, please press 2.
All right, so it seems like these phone calls are like a trend. They have like these, these systems and firewalls. So what I want to do is I'm going to keep making some calls and see if I can, make any progress. But looks like a relatively okay day, so I'm going to go downtown and see if I can talk with some people in person. I went down to the House or the Congress, and I was like in elementary school. And it's kind of nerve-wracking right now because you don't know what's gonna happen when you get down there. Like it's police all down there. So trying to get a congressman to respond to a question. So I don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah, so more the same. Same protocol, getting a runaround. So we're not too far from the Capitol and the Cannon building, so I'm going to attempt to go inside and see if we can't speak to somebody. We're just going to ask some questions about, or try to get a question or two asked about the wealth gap between the members of Congress and the voting people of the United States, and we're going to see if she'll answer this question. She is worth $1.3 million, so I think that is, that's a significant amount of money, and I like to have a little piece of something that she got, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, we're going to see if she can answer some questions. documentary about politics and Congress and money management and so forth and so on?
Unfortunately, they're actually like a staff meeting going on right now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, like that meeting and like everybody else is at like an inter-office staff meeting.
Oh, so there's no staff people there?
Unfortunately not.
Oh,
sorry.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not really in a position to answer anything on behalf of the office either.
Oh, man. Okay.
But best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, y'all take care.
So what just happened was they're having a staff meeting, and because everybody's in the staff meeting, so forth and so on, no one's in a position to answer any questions. So, we'll try the next person. His last reported net worth was about 1.2 million. It looks like now he could be in between 1.8 and 500,000 somewhere. So that's still considered wealthy. And let's see if he can answer some questions. Hey, how are you?
What's going on?
Robert. Stocks. We're doing a documentary about money management and politics. And do you mind if we record and ask you a question?
No, I'm not interested.
You're not interested?
No, sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Well, he should be interested in answering any questions that, the average person or American would have, but he's not interested. And, I guess if it doesn't suit their personal interest, then they're not going to answer any kind of questions about it. So, Frank Pallone his estimated net worth is about $3 million. Yeah, and Frank Pallone Jr. he won the lottery, so his net worth went up because he won the lottery. So yeah, he got a little bit of something. He got a chunk of change. So Congressman Pallone's office. Yep. Kind of nice. I feel like I'm on Veep right now. Yeah, son.
So he handles the issues.
All right.
But then let me write my email address on the back. I take the scheduling requests.
All right.
So if you email me your name and what days you're available, I can pass your request on.
Making phone calls, flubbing up on my words, because, you get in there, you get all scared, because they looking at you all funny, like, I'm about to call security. So anyhow, so I'm getting tired of this whole, thing, this whole runaround. So I'm going to leave. I'm going to go home. I'm good. Right now, and I'm getting ready to meet up with this guy, small business owner. I'm really interested to get another perspective on this issue, try to find some answers, and see what's going on, man. But I'm excited to hear from him and see what he thinks, how he feels.
I own a company. We do virtual tours for real estate called Sky Blue Media. We're based in DC, but we've expanded now to LA and Florida, so we're growing, but still small business. What I'd like to know from you, or like to get your feeling about, is like most Americans, there's a statistic that says most Americans don't even take the time to vote because they feel rather frustrated. There is such a wealth gap and such crap that we have to sift through. Sometimes it feels like, is it even worth it? So, how do you feel about that? Yeah, owning a small business, I put in a lot of hours, and I feel like, if I watch the news and try to stay plugged in what's going on, it's almost hard to sift through what's the truth. Everything's so biased, either slanting one way or another, and it's just hard to know, it's almost like a full-time job to try to figure out what's going on, and you feel very disconnected, as just a guy trying to make a living, trying to build something for what's going on in Washington.
You know they spend millions of dollars on those ads.
Yeah.
You know, put it on a whole bunch of ads trying to, advertise to people.
It's tough. It seems like it escalates, every election cycle. They have to spend more and more and more.
I feel that they're kind of disconnected from. They might not understand the same struggles that we, face on a daily basis. What are some of the challenges you may face financially with the business?
Well, it's tough. I mean, I started, it was just me, and then I grew, had, a couple contractors I hired, and it becomes a challenge because how big do you want to grow? Like, the bigger you get, the more you have to hire people, the more you have to pay out. Taxes get really complicated. I incorporated last year, and so it's really a challenge to know. It's just kind of overwhelming. I feel like the average American gets punished. It's like, instead of incentivizing people to work and incentivizing people to get insurance, or if you're a small business owner, to offer insurance, you should get an incentive for that. You should get a tax break for that. But you feel like you're always you're being punished for being successful. And so you have to keep working harder and harder to try to do what's right, by your people and take care of it.
There's a deep irony in the fact that we even have political parties in this country, because the founders believed that they had set up a constitution in which there would be no parties. So in the original Constitution, for example, the person who won the Electoral College vote became the president. The person who came in second place in the Electoral College vote became the vice president. The founders didn't anticipate that they would be at each other's throats, but it wasn't long before that proved to be the case. James Madison in particular was celebrating that there would be no parties in this particular constitution. And yet the way that we run elections leads to two political parties. We have single-member districts, meaning only one person represents an electoral district, and whoever gets the most votes wins. So that's called single-member districts with plurality rule. Now, in the United States, that seems natural. That's the only way to run an election. But in most of the rest of the world's democracies, they don't run elections that way. In Chile, for example, the top two vote getters in a district get to go onto the parliament. Most democracies have proportional representation systems, so you don't have to have whoever gets the most vote wins. You have to have above some certain threshold. But single-member districts with plurality rule leads towards two strong parties, and here's why. Imagine that you had an election with 6 candidates, and one of these candidates gets the most votes. Let's say this candidate gets the most votes, 26%, 27%. And the next closest is in the low 20s. Well, this person with 26, 27% of the vote is the easy victor. Single-member districts, plurality rule. But what about the other 5 candidates? Right? They know that if they form in coalition, say these 3 form in coalition, they might have 45% of the vote. So this candidate will talk to this candidate and say, you know what, if you don't run, you throw your support behind me, we'll take care of agriculture. And if you don't run, you throw your support behind me, we're going to take care of manufacturing. Now if you run this campaign, right, there would be these 3 candidates, all combined, and they get 45% of the vote. What happens with the others, right? They play the same game, and they combine their votes so that they form a coalition before the elections, and you end up with 2 political parties. We, in our political system, have coalitions that form before elections. In most democracies, using proportional representation, they have their coalitions forming after elections.
Your next word is prior. May I hear it in a sentence?
Mark Pryor was the deciding vote for Obamacare.
O-B-A-M-A.
I think the American media has fallen down on really educating people to the benefits of what they call Obamacare. If you look like what they've done for us, like all of my friends now have health insurance. Like once they graduate from college, there's that giant gap between college and employment, and all of my friends are able to extend their insurance, so they're no longer worried about that $5,000 insurance bill when they walk into the emergency room because they have like a sprained ankle or a broken ankle or something like that. And so I think they missed a lot of that, and I think they also missed a lot of what the Health Care Act did.
Do you have any stories of friends or anybody you know with like horror stories regarding healthcare or anything like that?
My dad's actually a doctor, so he's had to turn down like a lot of people that can't afford care, and that really sucks because he works with the brain, and like if you have a stroke and you can't pay for your medical bills, you're gonna die basically. And so I've seen a lot of cases where he's had to turn down people because of their insurance or lack of insurance, and it's just really unfortunate.
Right, as rich as this society is, I don't see a reason why we shouldn't have universal health care. The Affordable Care Act was an attempt. The business interests kind of curtailed that. I believe in universal health care. I don't believe it's a takeaway from the capitalistic system that we kind of enjoy here in America. Health care is a basic need somewhat. It's like food and shelter. If we can take that off the plate of people having to worry, maybe they could be better capitalists.
Half of Congress are millionaires. Do you think that's a problem? Do you think it's in any way contributing to a disconnect between the people or not?
I don't necessarily have a problem with them being millionaires. I think being successful is tied in with that, but what my problem is when they're so disconnected from the common people, when they don't allow themselves to be among the common people. I think the town halls are so structured at this point and so timed and staged that I don't really have any faith in that. What I'd like to see them is like required to do 100 hours of community service a month or something like that, like soup kitchens, going into the schools. And so like a lot of these Tea Party politicians that just want to cut everything back or like go spend time at the NIH and go see what's happening to like the budgets with these being frozen.
We just went through an interview in which he asked about healthcare not working.
Broken website and now cancellation notices from insurance companies.
Insurance premiums skyrocketed.
Yep, so I'm excited. We down here at the Capitol. It's kind of like the last attempt. They wore me down. I'm waiting on a call from a senator right now. I can't disclose his name because, I'm not clear for that yet. But I talked to teachers. I talked to small business people. And, we've been in Boston talking to people. I'm trying to finally get a perspective of a congressperson. So I'm down here and I want to see what's going to happen. You know how you waiting on that call? You need that call to happen. Like, come on, call. Like that job interview call. Got a call. Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. You got information for me? About the interview? Huh?
Yes, I spoke with my boss, and we're up for our guy might be running again. So they don't want us, he doesn't think it'll be good if we talk to anyone about even like day-to-day Congress stuff. Next people will go by.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you reached out to anyone else on the Hill?
Say that again?
Have you reached out to any other offices on the Hill?
I have. Same results.
Yeah. Well, especially now that they're going to be elections next year.
I know. Thank you. I appreciate your help.
But, yeah, sorry about that. Sorry that I wasn't able to give you guys anything.
All right.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So you guys know I've been trying to contact any congressperson that I can talk to get some questions answered. I made some connections with John McCain's office, and over the course of a few months, things fell through, and so I just wanted to talk to a staffer or anybody that I can reach out to get some questions answered. That fell through. Wasn't able to talk to any of those people. So at this point, it's kind of frustrating knowing that, election season is coming up, and they're even, on a higher alert, or they're even more guarded and not willing to answer any kind of questions because of that. It took me months to even just get some hope to talk with somebody, and now getting that call was just like the thing that just, the straw that broke the camel's back. So it's done. It shouldn't be this hard to talk to a congressperson. You shouldn't have to have press credentials and super press credentials to go in and get a question answered, or a letter answered, or email answered. It's crazy. It's ludicrous. So I know that there may be hope doing things another way, but the way that I did things and the way that I tried to do things, it just seemed like I couldn't talk to anybody, and so on. It's unfortunate.